Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, joining us on the last fireside chat on building a legacy through purpose, career, and wealth. As This is the last week for Asian Pacific Island Heritage Month. Today, we have three amazing speakers that are going to share about their experiences and their field of expertise on how they and also not only themselves, but also helping others build a legacy of their own. This is also in partnership. This is also in partnership. Sorry, my camera is moving a little bit. This is also in partnership with Pertham USA, a nonprofit helping kids around the world to learn. I'll also be matching 50% of the donations in total of $500 through the event. And we'll be sharing the link here throughout the event about where you can donate to help with kids learning around the world, not just in education, but getting their very basic education in. Before we get into it, I would like to share a little bit about my story about building legacy and how I got to where I'm at today. After being in the US for almost 13 years and coming here as a teenage girl myself, I fell in love and got used to so many great things about this country. My favorite thing is the freedom it offers. The freedom made me feel safe to speak my mind in many places, and the freedom exposed me to my faith. And so many other people I know have joined this beautiful country for that freedom. In fact, in Chinese, America is translated as a beautiful country. So it's a little bit of a sappy story, but I want to talk about the other part of my identity and heritage today, the Asian heritage. It is not just something that I want to leave behind, what I could leave behind, and this doesn't just mean my love for the rice and spices, it also means humbleness, hardworking, excellence, and so much more. Sometimes there is also a struggle of a balance between taking care of our family and pursuing our own independence, purposes, and happiness. But today, as the last week of Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, I want to take this time to cherish our heritage and also have the fireside chats with the Asian leaders in our community on how they build a legacy with purpose, career, and wealth, and helping others to do the same. So, the story I just told you is how I started my journey. I came to the US with the purpose of making an impact and helping as many people as I could, even though I didn't know how because I was just 16 years old and I was a teenager. I was a teenager who cried in the high school bathroom during lunch breaks because I didn't know which lunch table to sit at, which reminds me of Mean Girls a little bit, if you ever watched that movie. And then I started my career, things kind of just changed and got comfortable. I had a good paying job and I still have. And I helped my family wherever I could. I pivoted my career multiple times from being in the supply chain world to data world and back to supply chain world and grew my career multiple times through mentors and also other peers help along the way as well. And then COVID happened. It was a paradigm shift for me because while I was grateful for my job, I started asking myself, is it enough for the legacy I want to build? I asked myself, how about the purpose that I had when I boarded my first plane to the US? That is when I founded my real estate company, Life Mission Capital, where I made financial literacy one of my life missions. So I'm so excited to bring to you this series of fireside chats, and this is being our last and one for this year. So today, here's the plan for today. We'll first have Orana Chen, Alternative Investment Director at Morgan Stanley, talking about her story, her cultural background, but also her perspectives on risk management. And then we'll have Yogi Patel, former president of Pratham USA, talking about his journey of not only him coming to the US, being an investor, but being an engineer, but also how he helps kids around the world to learn something we both share a passion for. And then we'll have Patrick Amalraj from Sotastic. He's a co-founder of Sotastic. He'll talk about financial literacy for the family and the kids. It's not only important for us to build a legacy, but how to pass it along to our future generations. So, all of our speakers will also share their experiences around building legacy through purpose, career, and wealth. In between speakers, we'll share key takeaways, and at the end, we'll run the Wheel of Fortune for the attendees, and we'll raffle for a few books that's going to help you grow your legacy through purpose, career, and wealth. Some of the books are like Who Not How, Strength Finder 2.0, Miracle Morning, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and so many more. So, without further ado, I would like to kick off our first chat with Oriana Chan. So, let's extend a warm welcome as we bring Oriana to.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
thank you so much
Missy.
for joining from New York.
Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So I got to know Oriana actually through the wonderful community of LinkedIn. She had a post one time about how she rose up in her career, becoming a female leader, a female Asian leader in the finance space. You know, it's not very common to see. She shared her story. I was really inspired. I talked with her one on one, and now she's here. But that introduction I gave does not do its justice, of course. So I'm going to give you a formal introduction of Orina before we start asking her some of the questions I prepared. So Orina Chen is a New York City-based buy-side trend portfolio manager within the wealth management division of Morgan Stanley. She's originally from Taiwan. Orina is fluent in a few languages such as English, Mandarin, and Taiwanese. She received her bachelor's degree in East Asian Studies um, with honors degree, uh, summa cum laude, and also MBA with a academic achievement focused on value investing from Columbia University. Arena started her career as a private equity analyst for a public investment company, seeded by the Carlyle Group. And in this capacity, she worked on various deals, including the largest IPO in Hong Kong. She later joined Opera Fund's alternative investment arm, where she was responsible for managing $1 billion. Her background in the humanities and business, as well as a career path from private equity to hedge funds, allows her to analyze risks and performance for her clients across asset classes from a holistic and unique perspective. And in today's complicated and also volatile world, her strength comes from her ability to simplify this complex investments approach and also clarify obscure through a personal commitment to finding what is human about wealth. So, Arena, thank you so much again for joining. Um, I know there's many perspectives you can offer, and I want to focus a little bit today about your cultural background, your career journeys, and wealth in general. Just kind of the focus we have for the talk today, from purpose to career to wealth. So, I know I might have butchered a little bit on some of the pronunciations, but tell us anything that we didn't cover in details in the intro that I just went through that you felt like it would be good for the audience to know.
Sure. It was very kind of you for such a glorious introduction of me. um, so, everything we try to put on paper, it always sounds so fancy and so good, right? But in reality, everyone has their own downfalls, right? My story is also the same. So I came to the US like you when I was a teenager. I was 14 years old. And I came here because I really hated the educational system in Taiwan. It was all about regurgitation, right? There's only one way to do things, and the culture there is the same, right? There's only one way and the right way. Anyone that departs from that one way and the right way and the perfect way is going to be, kind of cast aside. So you're supposed to go to college when you're 18, then you go to grad school when you're 22, then you get your master, and then you become a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, of that sort, right? And that was not me. So something that I didn't put on paper, and I didn't that I would like to share with everyone, is that my life was not a straight path, right? I didn't graduate college until I was 29. So I took a 10-year break in between college. Um, and I started studying computer science, trying to become an engineer, like what my family had hoped me to do. Then I dropped out, and then I worked in private equity, and my dad had no idea what was private equity, right? It's like, okay, so you just do a lot of numbers, and then you travel, and then what does that, what does that mean, right? So it was actually a crazy story because it was a job that is so highly coveted by any of the Ivy League graduates, but I didn't even have a college degree. Then I my company got taken out, and I got a bunch of options. I cashed out. I went back to school. I switched to East Asian Studies from computer science, and I went from UC Irvine to Columbia College, and then to Columbia Business School. So there's like all these shifts in my life, and then I went from private equity to fund of funds, now to wealth management, right? So my life was never a straight path, and what I wanted to share, and from my story is, never be afraid to take a risk. It's okay to change path, and any way that you want to take, you will always learn, and there's always some success and some challenges along the way, regardless of which path you take. And I really appreciate America for that, right? I'm able to do that here. I think if I was in Taiwan, I wouldn't have that chance to go back to college after 10 years, and and to keep on switching my career to a different one and a different one and a different one. A lot of times your life just changes and conditions changes, and you just have to change accordingly. So that's something that I would like to share, that it wasn't on paper.
Yeah, I heard you chuckling when I was going through your bio, so I figure you had something interesting to share in that regard. And yeah, and I feel the same because I pivoted my career multiple times, from sales to supply chain to IT to data and then back to supply chain. So I really had to kind of hone in some of the transferable skills and what I've built along to really see where I'm going next. And sometimes it just takes time to explore things as well. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So the next question I have lined up for you is talking about legacy. Uh, what does that mean for you and your family?
Well, I think legacy, in to everyone, is how much money you can pass down to your children, right? And then on top of that, I think, like, because now I work with a lot of very wealthy clients, it's not just how much money, right? It's also the value and what you want them to do with that money, right? So your family value, your family tradition, and how do you want them to use what you pass down to them to build a better and more meaningful life. So to me, when I try to have some of my estate planning, and to have my all my wealth planning and my legacy planning, it is very important to me to set up that framework, the value rules, right, for my children. How much do I want to give it to them? How much do I want to give to charity? How much access do they have, until what age, and in what condition would they be able to have access? Some of the accesses are, there's no rules and restrictions if it's medical expenses or education, but some access would have some restrictions if they're just going to go, vacation in Paris or something, right? So to me, legacy, a lot of it is really about your values that you want to pass down to your next generation, and to help them to become the type of person that you want them to be. And the tool that you use to help them would be the wealth that you transfer to them.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know the speakers later, Yogi and Patrick, will have something to say on that too, because it's not just about handing them the fish, but teaching them so much more. The value doesn't just tie to dollars, even the wealth is a big component of a legacy building. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. So you talked about, engineering, East Asian studies, finance, so many different things. And so what brought you to do what you do today, wealth advising and alternative investments? What are the big reasons for you to do what you do every day?
You know, I think when I first came into wealth management, it was because I really wanted to build something of my own, right? So wealth management is an ideal path to combine my knowledge in finance, in investments, and then to combine my desire, sort of the entrepreneurship, because I do work for Morgan Stanley, but I'm building my own client base, my own book, and then the last thing is I wanted to have a good work and life balance where I can be a mother, as well as a career woman, and I wouldn't be able to do that in on the institutional side, because the hours are just so restricted, right? You are not able to say, okay, today my son is sick and I have to go to the hospital for 3 days, so I don't show up at work for 3 days. I just log in from the hospital, right? So that was initially what drew me to this industry, to the management industry. And then after I entered the industry, I've been doing this now for 5 years, and I'm doing it with the best firm. I, I think there's no question that Morgan Stanley, in my mind, is the best firm for wealth management. We have the best people, the best product. But I'm not here to promote Morgan Stanley. I realized that the way people invest for personal investments are very, very different from the institutional side when I was working to manage, pension money or other institutional money, right? The way that most people, personal investments, tend to be tied to more emotions. And even when you work with a financial advisor on the wealth management side, they would always ask you, what is your risk tolerance, right? And I do a lot of these speaking events, and I always ask, I always open these speaking events when there are audience that I can interact with. What do you think your risk tolerance level is? Is it aggressive? Is it moderate? Or is it, conservative? And tell me what you're investing, right? And you would be shocked with the answers that I get from the audience, right? One person would say, I'm very aggressive. I invest in, 20% bonds and 80% stocks. And then another person would be, I'm very conservative. I invest in 50% stocks and 50%, cryptocurrency. Like, and you go around the room and you say to yourself, what is your risk tolerance level? Is so subjective, right? It's not something that you really can use as a standard objectively to invest your money. And so that's when I made it my mission to promote this financial literacy about how to objectively look at your personal risk in your personal investments. And that's what makes me excited to go to work every day.
I see. That makes sense. What's the point of building a lot of wealth if you don't even understand the risk component, and then you can end up losing it all. So, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. Um, Leading to the next question, kind of going back to the heritage piece, and you already talked about that a little bit, and I think you could say it's pros and cons of the Asian culture. Sometimes there is kind of this homogeneous nature to it, but things have changed a lot throughout the years as well. But how do you feel about your culture overall has shaped to who you are today?
I think it for me. I think my family heritage. My dad. I spend a lot of my time with my dad growing up, and he's always my hero, and it's like this role model in my life. And he's so different from most Asian parents, right? He allows me to make mistakes. He allows me to explore life the way that I want to, right? When I drop out of college, he didn't say, "Oh, shame on you." No, you're a failure. You're never going to be successful. You're such a mess up, right? So whatever I do, he's always there to encourage me. And so I talked about, how I switched my career so many times, and I switched my study so many times. I've learned computer science. I know how to program. I study literature. I appreciate literature. I do financial modeling from business school. I worked on the institutional side. I worked, investing in real estate, and I worked in wealth management. And I think all that combined, everything that combined, gives me a very different perspective to do what I do. Right? I think I just have all that exposure to so many different things that another financial advisor would not have, right? And so it makes me very unique and different, not necessarily better, but very unique and very different. And for someone who is looking for something like this, I think they would find it very interesting, and a lot better. Now, so I think that's that part of my culture and my heritage, in my family, to allow me to keep changing course and keep trying different things, and to just follow untraditional routes. I think make me very, very unique and very different, and just gives me like such strength and power to do what I do every day when I work with people on thinking through their finance, how to look at their personal investments, how to think about passing down their wealth to their children. What do we do? What are the parenting questions as it relates to finance and money? I think that, makes me very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think you were the lucky one. I think if I dropped out of college, my dad would be really mad. I love my dad, but I'm very sure he'll be very mad.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so I'm glad you had a great family support, and I know that Patrick and Yogi probably have something to share on that later, which I'm excited to hear about.
Oh, can
Um,
I say something?
yeah.
He actually allowed me to stop playing piano too. That
Oh
was
my
a
gosh. Wow.
big victory for me.
That's like one of the stereotypes I feel that's been broken. So,
Of course.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm grateful that he made those decisions so we can get to talk to the version of you you're here today. So, yeah. So let's move into a little bit on the risk management piece, something you're passionate about when it comes to helping your family and also others, um, in terms of managing the risk and building their wealth. Um, you mentioned about the objectivity around risk
Yeah.
management and some type of measure versus just being so subjective all the time. So, how would you suggest we try to do that whilst y'all managing the risk? How do the markets up and down and affect the overall objectivity as well?
Yeah, so I talked about the story whenever I open up a speaking event, I would ask everyone, right? So it just shows me that everyone's, risk manage what they have in mind in terms of what their risk tolerance level is so subjective. And when you tell it to your financial advisor or any investment professional that's working with you, then you're subject to that person's interpretation of what they think is moderate, aggressive, or conservative. So I if I was the client and I say I'm aggressive and I tell it to you, Missy, and then your aggressive might be completely different from my aggressive. So you're having two levels of interpretation, of subjective interpretation of what the risk tolerance level is. So that's one thing I want to point out. And then the second thing I also wanted to point out is you asked me about my culture. How does that make me the person I am and deal with risk? I also want to mention that I work with a lot of Mandarin speaking clients who are ultra wealthy, right? They're Chinese culture, and I find it very interesting that a lot of majority of the clients that I work with, they kind of fall into two extreme camps, right? They're either the ones that want to shoot for the moon and make the most amount of money that they could, regardless of all these ups and downs in the market, um, or they want to be super conservative and don't want to lose anything. Like capital preservation is the key for them, to the point that they do not want to take any risk, and it's okay if they don't make any money. They're happy to forego any opportunity cost for that pot of money, right? So those are the two type of clients that I deal with. And I always think, okay, so what is, how do we do this objectively, right? How can I explain to people, so that maybe one day I can make an impact in the wealth management industry? That's what really drives me every day. Is I want to make that impact. I want to bring that objective way to everyone that is willing to listen to me, right? So This is the meat of my speaking event. I'm going to go over it very quickly. We don't have, I know I'm very limited with time. Usually this takes quite a while. I'm going to share my website, just a few slides that I always use. It's posted on my website, so anyone can always go back and refer to them, and you can kind of look through those 3 different slides. And if you have any questions, please do email me or call me. I'm happy to discuss it, right? So here's the first slide I wanted to show everyone. This slide has 3 different person, investor A, B, and C. Now they 3 of them have different returns. Return sequence for
Sorry, you're not.
yeah.
I'm not seeing the screen share. Can you share one more time?
Oh, sure. Okay. Sorry about that. Now let's try again. Does this work?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is not a real situation. It's constructed to kind of show this point that I have. So if you look at the investor A, B, and C, 3 of them have different investment return sequence. A makes money first years 20%, 15%, 10%, -1, -5, right? So those are the 5-year pattern, and you repeat that pattern. B is the reverse of that pattern. So he loses 5%, -1, 10, plus 15, plus 20. And then C is always at 7.4. Okay. So you look at all the different return sequence and you say, okay, so what happened to their investment from age 30 to 65 in 25 years? They actually all end up in the same place. All 3 of them put $1 million into their investments, and in 25 years, all of them have about roughly $6 million, even though how they got there is very different, right? A goes up first, then goes down, then up and down. B goes down, then up, then down, then up, right? They get there very differently, but they all get there at the same place. So this is when you're not taking money out from your investment. You just keep it there in the market, keep it invested, and your only goal is to pick something that goes up, right? If it goes down, then you keep on going down, then you lose money. But so your only mission is to pick something that goes up. Anything that happens, all the ups and downs in between, didn't really impact you because all of them got to the same place. But if you look at this other slide, you would see now if the game changes a little bit and you say, okay, we still have the same return sequence for all 3 different investors. We still put in $1 million to start with. But now the new rule for this game is that every one of them is going to take out $80,000 a year to spend, to do whatever. So you can think of it as a retirement, right? You're taking money out now. You're not just keeping it in your investment. And you can see the dramatic difference now. A was making money in the first 3 years. So A was able to make more in the first 3 years than what he was taking out, the $80,000. B was losing money and taking out money for the first 2 years. So he couldn't really recover the losses. And then C was taking out a little more than what he was making every year. So when the same sequence of returns for all 3 investors, the only difference is that taking out that $80,000 a year from their investments actually makes a dramatic impact in their investments at the end, right, of the 35 years. So you see that A actually still ends with positive investment amount. So he started with 1 million, ends with 1.2. C was spending a little more than what he could make, so he started dwindling down. So 1 million goes down to about $580,000. B, on the other hand, hits really bad timing, right? He was down 5% in the first year, down 1% in the second year. So he couldn't recover his losses and he was taking money out. So by the end of his investment period, he actually has nothing left. So what I wanted to talk about risk is that risk, a lot of times, is not just the ups and downs as we learn in school, the volatility or the standard deviation, but it's also how long do you have with your investment in your investment without taking it out. If you don't need to take out your investment, you let it sit, that ups and downs don't really make a difference. But the minute you have to take out your investment, you have to go and sell it at a loss. If the market is down, you sell it at a loss, like B in the first year. In the second year, you have to take it out. So you're realizing your losses. The minute you have to do that, you know, you can't recover your losses. So it really, you have to, when you're investing and when you're you know, deciding on what you want to invest in, one of the key thing that you really need to think about in terms of risk management is this volatility or this ups and downs suitable for the time frame that I have. If I only have 1 year in the stock market, that's too short, right? I will hit situations like B. If the market goes down 5% and I have to take out my money, I'm going to realize my losses. But if I have 10 years, I will probably be okay, right? So investment time frame that is matched with your risk level would be the key thing for risk control. And this we can do with personal money because we're able to define our investment period. We are able to say, okay, this money is for my retirement money. I don't really need it for 10 years. So, okay, I'm going to put it in for 10 years and I can take a lot of risk. There's, you know, institutions are unable to do that because a lot of times, you know, let's say you're a hedge fund or you're a company, you have cash flows coming in, you have cash flows going out, you're unable to really predict it. So it's harder for them to define that investment time frame, right? That's why they have to control that ups and down, that volatility. But for personal investments, if we can define our investment time frame, then that is a much better way to control your risk without having to control that ups and down. Because the minute you start to reduce that ups and down, that volatility is when you have to give up your return. So a better way without sacrificing your personal return for your personal investment is to first define how long your investment can stay invested, that time frame. And I just want to show you this really cool slide that we have at Morgan Stanley. So this is the time horizon impact on your risk and reward. You can visit it later after this fireside chat. I'm just going to go over one example since it's very encompassing of a lot of different scenarios. But this is based on data that was from February of 1973. So until September of 2021. So this is almost 50 years of data. And what this is showing is that if we look at the top row, you have 100% stocks and no bonds, right? So this means all your money is invested in stocks and you're not investing in bonds. And what happens, this is S&P 500 data. If you invest all your money in stocks for just 1 year, okay, you only have a 1 year time frame. Your worst case scenario is minus 45% in the past 50 years. Your best case is plus 64% in that 1 year. If you're able to increase your time frame to be longer and to be 5 years, now your downside, your worst case is minus 6.4% annual return, and then your plus side, your upside is now 30.7% per year. So you see that return range a lot tighter. You are not losing 45% anymore. You're now, the worst case is minus 6.4. If you can increase that to 10 years, then it's even tighter. That ups and down gets even tighter, right? The worst case is minus 3.7 and the best case is 19.7 per year. you look at this chart and then you think to yourself, right, are these based on historical data? Now, future could be different, but you can see how the return gets tighter and it's not so ups and down and so crazy anymore just because you now have more time in the market for your stocks. You think to yourself, is that minus 0.37% okay for me if I had to take that losses in 10 years, right, per year? If not, then you can move down to a different mix, right? The second one down is 90% stocks, 10% bonds, and you can move it all, keep on going down to a place where it's 50% stocks and 50% bonds. And then your downside is almost nothing. Now you only have upside based on the historical return. So if you're in your investment, in your retirement age and you don't want to take any risk, of any downside, then you can say, okay, I'm gonna do 50%, 50% stocks and bonds, and these are the money I can set aside for another 10 years. I'm gonna spend this other pot of money, right? So you start having different buckets of money. So that's kind of the general idea, um, that um, that I've always
Mhm.
been sharing with my clients, and and all these speaking events and a lot of students. um, I think that's a true objective way of thinking about how to control your risk, right? You can either reduce your ups and downs and then reduce your return, or you can lengthen your time frame without having to reduce your return. You
Mhm.
just have to say, okay, I'm going to keep this money a lot longer. And as long as it's your personal money, you are definitely able to define that.
Yeah, definitely. Define investment time frame can really help you understand what risks you're up for. And the ups and downs you mentioned were mostly in the monetary market, but it also applies to the real estate investment as well, which is something that I'm passionate about. So ups and downs, if you understand kind of the exit strategy, how long you have. So similar concept. Understand.
Exactly, right. I mean, real estate market there, it's not mark to market every second. You don't have a home that is worth 1 million right now and then um, half a million like in a month, right? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So a lot of that fluctuation in the stock market, it's irrational, right? If you think about that, like all these liquidity is making all these ups and downs. So if it's so irrational, so if you're able to kind of set it aside and say, okay, that ups and downs is completely meaningless as long as it's going up over time, then I just have to
Mhm.
think about how long can I keep this money in here.
Yes, definitely. And also diversification is always good when it comes to about different asset classes, stocks, bonds, real estate, or other assets as well. Yeah, it's very
Definitely.
interesting. Hmm.
And can I mention one thing about diversification?
Yeah.
Diversification is great when you're able to go up in different times, right? Like, um, but it's not great if you're picking something that doesn't go up, right? You're diversifying away from your return. But it also saves you from mistakes, because if you only hold one thing or one stock or one property and you happen to be wrong, then you're going to be losing a lot of money. So diversification is saves you from mistakes in investments.
Hmm. Yes, definitely. So basically, the first thing is in, wa- apart from wanting to know how much returns you want to have, first understand your risks because that's always go hand in hand. And before you understand your risks, understand your time horizons because that's going to shape how the risks are going to be across the
Exactly.
different time horizons. So those are kind of the three steps I was able to gather from listening to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. And going, I just have a few questions, maybe two, three lined up here, talking about just overall building a legacy. Do you have any overall general suggestions for anyone who wants to build a legacy? What would you say is the step one, step two, and step three? I know I mapped out some based on kind of hearing you. I don't know if you have any other perspectives you want to add.
Well, I think, to me, building legacy, like I mentioned, has a lot to do with values, right? And what money is a tool to help you help your next generation. Is not is not just something that's in a vacuum, right? So a lot of it is really the value and the person that you want them to become. When I work with clients, a lot of them set up what's called an irrevocable trust to put money into the trust for their next generation for tax benefits, right? That trust contract is not difficult to draft. It's actually quite quickly. You can just an attorney can write it up for you very quickly. But what is really hard is that that value that you want to define, is the rules that you want to put into that trust to help you shape the values of your children. And that is very individual, is very different for everyone, right? So I have seen irrevocable trust that says, okay, once my kids are 40, they're free to take out all the money, and because I trust that they're mature enough. I have seen trust that says once they're all, my kids are, first one is married, um, then the trust becomes two separate trusts for my two separate kids. I don't want them to be sharing the same trust because now they have their own family and they're going to have their own way of managing their lifestyle and the way that they want to spend money. I have seen trust that says, I want them to be tied together forever. Or I have seen something that says, okay, instead of this, I want to create a family foundation where, I'm going to donate the money to um, saving children, starving children around the world. And I want my children, my kids, to be sitting on that family foundation board, working together, because that's the family value I want to pass down. And I want them to have a united mission even after I passed away and they have their own family, that they can work together and still have, our family value to unite them. So I think that legacy, that part, the value part, is very individualized. It's very personal, and that's the hard part. So I think my suggestion to everyone in terms of legacy is to really be thinking about that value. Those rules. Set up trust or thinking about how much to pass down. I don't think that takes relatively short time, but thinking through how you want to design this, it could take forever. Like sometimes couples can't even agree. Mom wants to leave everything to the kids, dad wants to donate 50% to charity. you know Mom says they can access their money when they are married, dad says no, everything stays in the trust, except for this and that. So those are the type of questions I would suggest that everyone start really thinking when you're planning your legacy.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Thank you so much. That's super helpful. Value is definitely a key thing, and I think that ties into the purpose piece we have for the fireside chat. So, it's all very great information you shared. I am going to do a quick summary of the talk that we had today with you, and also your background. The first key takeaway I have is don't be afraid to take risks. If we're talking about risks in general, the first one is don't be afraid to take risks. That's personal risks you took from different cultures to another culture, different paths to another career path. So don't be afraid to take risks and for your personal journey. That's number one. And then the second one, when it comes to risk management, we need to take a step back. And the key lesson is define the investment time horizon. That way, you can truly understand what your risk tolerance is. And then with those risk tolerances, what's the best returns you can get with those risk tolerances? So start working backwards, not just thinking, staring at the dollars. So that would be the second one, investment horizon. The third one is on how to build a legacy. So it's not about money distributions and the actual clerical process. What's more important is the value, the purpose. Think of yourself as a person, your family as a person. What value you want to bring to your family, to the society, to the world, and also what purpose you have. So with that, and help. using the fund, the trust, or different instruments to mold your family or future generations to help you follow the legacy you want to build. So, um, those are the three key takeaways. Is there anything else that I might have missed that you want to leave to the audience today or the viewers that will watch this later?
I think you summed it up so perfectly. I might have to invite you as my co-speaker to my next event. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I covered it, and it's all your words. I just put it into my little notepad here. Thank you so much again, Marina. It's a really pleasure having you, and we look forward to seeing you around on social media, on LinkedIn, and stay connected as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So, the next speaker that we'll have after Oriana gave a great story around her culture, her career, and her approach to risk management and also building a legacy. I'm very excited to bring our next speaker up very soon. And he's going to talk about how his legacy has been shaped through his childhood, his career, and to where he is today. So, our next speaker is Yogi Patel. So, Yogi, I met him at a conference a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to bring him up here shortly after the introduction. We met at a conference, and he captured my attention not just because he was playing flute at a conference, which is something you don't see people do often, but also he had an amazing story, and we immediately clicked on education for the kids around the world, in the U.S. and many other places. So here is Yogi's introduction. He is a past president of Pratham USA, which is a foundation that helps kids around the world to learn. He is also a current board member of the Dallas Fort Worth chapter of that organization. He has dedicated the last 24 years as a volunteer fundraising across the US, whether that means speaking at large events or the small one that we have now, or inviting folks to his place for coffee. Um, in 2021, when COVID lockdown, he did something crazy. He skydived. A 7-year young person skydived and raised $1 million online. So just think about 70-year-old skydiving. I can't think of that. So I'll be playing a video here shortly. So stay tuned. So continue on the introduction. Yogi is also proud of his work with Pratham, um, studying the nonprofits literacy programs as effective and low cost models that are easily scaled. So we'll hear a little bit more from him about that as well. In most of the Pratham centers, you won't find a building, furniture, wall, playground, but you will find 20 children who are eager to learn and one caring soul who lives in a community who's willing to teach, um, said Real Yogi. So that is the model that they have. Because of the simplicity of the model, the cost is really low. So donating $20 and the organization will teach a child to learn how to read, how to count, and how to write. So it could be your next meal or maybe less than a meal depending on where you live, but it can help our kids do so many things. So Yogi is now 70 years young and continue to work for India's children until his last breath and many other kids around the world. His drive is rooted in his belief that children have dreams, they have hopes, they have aspirations. All they're asking is an opportunity for education that you and I had, that they can have if we can just take the action. So in our chat, you'll see that we have the Pratham USA org Take Action Donate link that you can donate, and I'll be matching as well. And right here, before we bring our awesome speaker up, we want to show you a quick video about what happened when he's skydiving. Awesome. I'm so excited to bring you up here, Yogi. And that video is amazing, by the way. I say that because I was skydiving. I did not have time to wait by the camera. I was screaming the whole time, and my eyes were closed half of the time until like the parachute went up. So kudos to you for doing something so amazing and also doing for the charity you're passionate about.
But thank you so much. Thank you. I really enjoyed talk by Orena Chang. I think that was a great presentation. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Yogi, I know that you prepared a special little presentation for us to learn a little bit more about the story that just, uncovered a little bit. It's like the tip of the iceberg that I just uncovered. So I'm going to share the slides here for you. And when you're ready, you can just let me to
Okay,
click.
before you do that, let me tell you what we do at Prasam.
Oh, yeah, please, please.
Okay. See, in India, um, there are two education systems. One is for middle class, upper middle class. They have figured out how to educate their children. But half of India's population, those who are illiterate, in the live in the urban slums or in the village, they have very little education. Their children go to government schools, but they never learn how to read, write, and count. They go to fourth grade, fifth grade, but they don't have the basics of language and arithmetic. So after fourth, fifth grade, they drop out. And when the child drops out, a child will face uh, a, a, a very bad future. Number one, the dropout child is a perfect victim of child labor. So they work as child laborers in the cities. They do shoe shining or carry the loads or sell fruits or vegetables or just bum around. The girls, especially, they get married at very early age. At 14, 15, they are married off because they are not in school. So, with the marriage come children. There are too many children. The illiterate girl has no say as to how many of their kids she will have. There is a population explosion. And if you cannot read, cannot write, cannot count, you don't go beyond fourth or fifth grade, there are not very many jobs that you can do. So they are trapped in this eternal cycle of poverty. What prasam, it means in Sanskrit number one. That is the first thing a child needs after a child gets food and shelter is an opportunity to basic literacy and numeracy. Without that, nothing else is possible. So that is what the Pratham's mission is. We work with 3 to 5 year old preschoolers. We work with this first to fifth grade. Mainly help in the supplemental education. We don't have schools. Government has the schools. The children of illiterate parents, they don't do well in school, so we help them before the school, after the school, or even inside the school. All we do is we engage a young lady, young woman who hardly has 10th grade education. We train her, and she teaches children. She plays with the children and then help the children learn the basics so they can stay with the school and go beyond fifth grade. That's what we do.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And that is very important for everyone to know. And I know that your story is very closely tied to that because how you came to it, but I don't want to spill the beans here, but that is an amazing story. Um, so, is there anything else you'd like to add about your background? Or would you like me to start the little PowerPoint?
Yeah, you start the PowerPoint, and that is my story. The power, I got a three-click, one-slide PowerPoint that tells who I was and
Yes,
why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
yes, yes. So, so here is
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the story.
Let's go to um, go to the first click. Okay, right there. Okay. I want to give you a little bit about my background. My name is Yogi Patel. By profession, by education, I am a chemical engineer. I came to the United States when I was 22-year-old, a little bit older than Orina was when she came here. So I came here to study chemical engineering. I got my degree. I started with Oklahoma State in Stillwater, got my master's from Tulsa University, and then started working in the oil industry. I started with Sun Oil Company, then went to work for a consulting firm, and then I went to Gulf Oil and Chevron. So first 20 years of my professional career in US, I was working as a petroleum engineer or a branch called reservoir engineering. So I was a reservoir engineer, and my job was mainly to squeeze oil from the dead rocks to fuel the cars. I did that for 20 years. And in 1990, I had a major realization that, hey, my last name is Patel. A lot of people whose names were Patels, they were going into hotel business in America. So I thought I'll just quit Chevron and I'll just go into the hotel business. So I did that. I bought a 96 unit property in Houston near MD Anderson Hospital, and I ran a fairly large housing program for cancer patients. The hotel was a low income. It was meant for low income. Our daily rates were $30 a day, and for that I was giving even transportation to the hospital. So all my guests were cancer patients who stayed at the hotel. It was just not a lodging program. I provided a lot of support services, like show them the movies in our rec center, take them to neighborhood zoo. Uh, I even used to hire them to work at the front desk, and I did some bulk mailing contract work for them. And because of my work for cancer patients for 15 years, I won many awards, including a trip to the White House when Mrs. Clinton was invited. The one time she was hosting some Asian Americans, and I was selected for my work for indigent cancer patients, humanitarian work for indigent cancer patients. I did that for 15 years, from 1990 to 2005. Then in 1999, I ran into an organization called Pratham that I just fell in love with it. I became a volunteer. I served as the first president for 6 years. And after 2005, after I sold my property and retired, 2005 to 2020, 15 years, I traveled 40 weekends, drumming up support for Prasam. I would go to different cities in America, meet with strangers, mainly of Indian origin, but sometimes mainstream Americans also, and persuade them to support our cause. And I want to tell you why I did that. Like traveling every weekend is not easy, especially as a volunteer. You're not getting paid. The only reward you get is satisfaction. But I had some compelling reason why I did what I did. What I'm showing you here, Missy and friends, is a dark spot or black print. It's a very ugly picture. This is how 300 million Indians sign their names. It's a thumbprint because they cannot write, they cannot sign their name. The picture is very ugly, but it's very special for me because this is my father's signature. My dad was an illiterate man. I grew up in a village near Mumbai, about 200 miles from Mumbai. We were four brothers, two sisters. Lost our mother at very early age. When my mother died, I was only 3, and I had a younger brother who was only 6 months old. My dad never remarried. He raised us. And our family knows everything about poverty. When I grew up in that village, though my dad was illiterate, there are the three things that really helped us, helped our family. Number one, though my dad was an illiterate man, somehow he knew that education was good for us. He was our cheerleader. He encouraged us to study. But that alone was not enough. There was a second reason. The Almighty was very partial to me. He gave me a brain that was sharper than average. I stood first in my village school. I had to finish my studies in the daylight. Forget the electricity, there was no kerosene in the house. But I managed that. But there was a third factor I like to call a Pratham factor. Can you give a click, please? In that village at that time, there was no formal organization like Pratham. But there were few people who had that spirit of giving. They were not local villagers. They were mainly people who had gone to Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. They had left the poverty of this village and settled there. But at Christmas time, once a year, many of them used to come home to the village. And whenever I had a need, Missy, these people came to my rescue. They helped. In 1967, I got my admission to study chemical engineering at Oklahoma State. I got my scholarship. I had a visa. And I set out on that train journey from Anand station in Gujarat to Mumbai. I so vividly remember even today when I was getting on that train. One family bought me a pair of shoes. Another family had bought me 3 pants, 3 shirts. Young man is going to US to study. You cannot get on the plane without shoes. Another family gave me, bought me one-way ticket. Anand to Mumbai, Mumbai to New York, New York to Stillwater, Oklahoma. Click, please. Next click. I can sign my name. In Gujarati, in Hindi, and in English. That is my journey from my father's signature to my signature.
Thank you.
Nobody needs to convince me that education works. It has worked for me. It has worked for my family. That is my reason why I became a volunteer for this organization, why I traveled across USA as a volunteer, and why I skydived. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Yogi.
for hosting me. Thank you for pledging $500. Miss you there. That's very thoughtful of you.
Thank you, Yogi. That's the very little things I can do, and I'm sure there's so much more that we'll be able to do in the future as well. But really appreciate you sharing the story. I know you got a little teary, and I feel the same. Feel I completely feel you. Um, when you
But
started
it's
talking.
fun. I tell you, I enjoy it. I like what I do.
Yeah, I can tell. And when you were talking about being on that train, it's actually kind of funny. When I came to the US for the first time, I boarded a plane for the first time as well. It was a very interesting experience. Even though, I didn't come from the poverty like you mentioned, but we weren't a very wealthy family by any sense. So um, my family sacrificed a lot, and I'm grateful for the education that was opportunities that was provided to me from very beginning ages to even today, that opportunities I can have. So really appreciate you sharing. And you know you're a true living example of how you have benefited from someone reaching out, just helping, and that person may not even know they helped you to who you are today. And then you're doing the same for many others. And to me, that's one of the things that um, Orina mentioned, right? The value. Like, if to you it didn't just mean your family, you even took that mission further. It's for other kids that you can help give them opportunities. So it's really, really inspiring.
Actually, in my skydiving adventure, I'm really fearful. I don't like heights.
Oh
In
my
my
god.
in my house, if we have to, change a light bulb, my wife gets on the ladder, not me. But after the COVID, I was so frustrated because all our events were cancelled. We Prasam USA has 14 chapters in USA. Once a year they have a event in a five-star hotel, and the guests come and the supporters come, and then they place their support and we raise money. With the lockdown, everything was closed. So I told myself, this COVID is going to lock my body up, not my spirit. So I will go high up in the sky, 14,000 feet, where there is no COVID. And I will go to GoFundMe, the virtual platform. There is no COVID there. And I recruited my family members. My 85-year-old sister, she took part as a teammate.
She
She
jumped
doesn't
with
say,
you.
no, to raise money. The way you raise money online is you set up a web page on GoFundMe platform, and then you recruit some teammates. They can reach out to their networks.
Hmm.
So my sister is 85-year-old. She doesn't speak well the English. Doesn't know how to use computer or even a smartphone. I gave her a simple script in our language, and she called her, the friend, the senior citizens, in Gujarati language. She raised $108,000.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So my appeal to the people was very simple, and it just so happened that in 2020 September I turned 75. So I came up with a message that has got a global appeal. I told people that, hey, I'm turning 75 this year. Because of COVID, my family, they live from Detroit to San Diego, Miami to New York. They cannot come and celebrate with me, but you are my family. Can I count on a $75 gift for the charity that I have given 24 years of my life as a volunteer? And a lot of people, a lot of strangers, they responded. Some of them, thanks to LinkedIn, some of them responded from places as far as Singapore and Hong Kong,
Hmm.
and Dubai,
Wow.
men in London. And this
Hmm.
could not have been possible without LinkedIn, really.
So thank you, LinkedIn.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one thing you could say that we're the fortunate, the other way is we've been blessed. We have given things, and you're given the opportunity along. Um, uh, I want to also deep dive you into your experiences, just coming from India to here, and also grow your career and your wealth and your legacy a little bit more. So one thing you mentioned is about getting into engineering So it sounds like your path was very similar to mine in terms of, you got in, and engineering education was key in building your wealth. Generally speaking, engineering does have like a fairly good compensations, and then you wanted to venture into your own entrepreneurship. You started with a hotel, and then you're going back to, because I believe when you told me at the conference last time, you said, you said, when I'm 40 years old, I'm going to dedicate myself to this, and you did that. So the question for you is, um, was there at one point in your journey that you forgot about giving back? What did you always have given back first? And the reason I ask is, people, whether it's Asian or Asian American or people all around the world, sometimes struggle with, do I take care of myself first, or do I always be in the giving mode? Sometimes people say when a plane is falling, you always take care of yourself first. So make sure yourself is taken care of, and then at the right time you take care of others, so you can both thrive. So I was curious about your perspective and how you approached it.
Okay, I was very clear from the day that I left India that my first priority was to settle my family. So once I got my job, I called my family. They will help them settle in USA. They are all in my family. There are 12, 13 doctors now. Between my brothers and sisters, children. So I mean, we made sure they all got education. They got opportunity. So started with the family, then the neighbors, some friends I've helped, and I kept helping even when I had my career with Chevron. I've helped many people, and even at the hotel. I tell you, I ran a very unusual hotel program. I had a contract with MD Anderson. The cancer patients, the indigent cancer patients, check in on Sunday, but they have to check out on Friday because Saturday, Sunday they are not covered. So either their families have to come back and bring them, pick them up and bring them back again on Sunday. Now, if somebody is living in El Paso, it's impossible to do that. And so many of these patients, they were, spending weekend time at Salvation Army, or many times they didn't like to go there. They were sleeping in the cars. So once I found out, I told them that nobody is going to sleep in the car or go to Salvation Army. You can give me $1 to $30. I will take whatever you want to pay. But if everybody wants a free room, I cannot give you free room. So I made a volunteer charges on the weekend. And most people are so honorable, they chipped in. They made a fair share. And that is how I ran the lodging program. So giving back was, natural to me because I have received so much from my own family when I grew up, and from the people in the village. So I have done that.
I see. So you do recommend people to take care of themselves first, and but as soon as their maybe basic needs are met, in the meanwhile, start helping out other people. Like in your case, whether it's helping out with the cancer patients, or other things you've been doing, right?
Yes, in fact, I recommend that every stage, you just don't wait to be super rich and then give. As a student, you can give.
Yeah.
Just make a giving as a very early experience. It's a
Yes.
sharing and caring.
Yes. In That's something me and my husband we talk about, because earlier in our career it was difficult, it felt like, but I agree, once it becomes a habit, whether whatever you believe in and whatever organization that you believe in, when you start out, whether it's 10%, 20% of whatever amount you choose, once you get used to it, when your salary or your income grows bigger, it becomes a habit. Because otherwise, to go from 0 to 10% of whatever number you have, or 20%, it can feel it can feel like you're not used to it, and like it's even more likely for you never even take that step. So
In fact, my thinking in about giving is, don't try to give 10% of what you make. Go and give now, you will get 100 fold. it's an investment really.
Hmm.
The Almighty will take care of you. God will give.
Yes. The ones that give are blessed in
Yes,
some
it's
ways
a
that you
blessing.
cannot imagine. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. That makes sense. Um, so how about the investment piece that you did yourself? Were you still able to run a profitable business when you were, putting other people first and putting cancer patients first? How were you able to run a
Great,
profitable business?
great question. A great question. I think I was struggling. I barely paid my bills, my taxes, utilities, payroll. But as the Almighty takes care of you, when I sold the property in 2005, there was a bidding war. There were three major players were trying to buy my property, and I got such a decent offer. They were trying to outbid each other, and I came out very well. So I
I
said
see.
2005. I said, okay, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go full time with Pratham USA, and just maintain the standard that I have, simple standard of life, and see, I mean, how far can we go with Pratham. And we have made tremendous progress. We started with zero in 1999
Mm,
there in one city. And last year we raised $26 million.
mm.
From US standard is not too much, but for Indian standard is phenomenal.
Yes, we talked about $20 can really help with many kids. So 26 million divided by 20, I can't even calculate, but that sounds like many kids were able to help them learn how to write, count, and read. Those are basic elements to grow in this today's world. Hmm. And so I think those the stories you told are very inspiring to me because apart from general literacy, another thing I'm passionate about is financial literacy. And you have set a great example on how I would potentially go about my passion for financial literacy and really become an advocate. So thank you for sharing that. Um, so coming back to the end of the hour for the uh, session, wanted to just do a few quick summaries of the talk today. And
Okay.
before I get to that, Yogi, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience or future viewers about your story or what you would encourage them to do on the topic of building a legacy?
Actually, no, I never started working for Pratham as a volunteer, thinking that, excuse me, anybody will ever ask me this question that hey, I'm doing some sort of work that's somebody will even call a legacy, really. I thought it was just common sense that a child needs to be in school, not in a factory, not on a farm. And if my $20 can make the difference to keep a child in the school, why wouldn't I do it? That was my mindset. But now, I mean, a lot of people are saying that, hey, this is good. So I tell you, my uh, advice to people or suggest recommendation to people or appeal to people is that educating a child or every child in the world, don't take it as a charity. It's an investment for ourselves. Because if you look at the planet, there are 7 billion people on this planet. About 4 billion people have no use for what we sell. They will never be on LinkedIn. They will never open an account at a Chase Bank or any bank because they have no money. They will never buy life insurance. Their life has no value. They die of dog bites, snake bites, lack of water, sanitation, food, simple medication. Medicine. They don't have access. The only way, I mean, to bridge that gap is you invest in a primary education. Invest in education. The first step is early childhood education, primary education. Without that foundation, you cannot you cannot have a level field, and you have to feel sorry for these folks do charities, build shelters for them. We have to house them, clothe them, give them food, uh, give them handouts. But that is not sustainable solution. It is not good. It doesn't give them dignity. But you invest in education. We have 4 billion new clients who will buy our homes and open accounts in our banks. And stock market will go to 24, 34.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. Sometimes I feel that certain investments, sometimes stock market feels like a zero sum game. But when it comes to investing in people, especially kids and our future, that's where things can really exponentially multiply, even though we may or may not be there to see it. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I'd like to summarize the talk today with you, Yogi, on a few things. The first is um, just about helping others along the way. It doesn't have to. Doesn't have to wait until you're super rich. For example, education is something you can help with. It's the right of every child should have, especially when it comes to primary early childhood education and how that can help with our society in the future. And the poverty shouldn't be hindering a child from having access to an opportunity to study or dream big. And you're a true example of how you were given that opportunity. And even though it wasn't Pratham, but opportunity like Pratham would be able to provide, and you're able to succeed and be able to. I would say exponential doesn't even do its justice. The amount of impact you're able to amplify into this world. Um, so, and the second thing is teaching them how to fish rather than just giving them money. So it's really about the education piece and giving them the tools so they can succeed like you're doing. So continue to multiply the impact. And for you, it's never about the rewards and recognition, but satisfaction, being able to help those. That's a true satisfaction, a true investment. So I encourage others to think about that too. So those are the takeaways I have from today, and I like to encourage others to think about. Anything else I'd like to add before we end this fireside chat here?
Yes, I would like to try skydiving again. And I'll be reaching out to my LinkedIn family for support. All I'm asking is $77 for my 77th birthday. But I want a million people to give.
That's a great goal to get to for sure. And I think and I believe you can do it, Yogi. You've already done great things through the last campaign. With the amount of impact you're able to make. So I would love to join you on that effort when it's your birthday. I believe you said it's in November, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you so much, Yogi, for spending time with me today and for
Thank you. Thank
talking
you.
with the future audience as well. Really appreciate you. Well, we'll see you later. Thank you,
Okay.
Yogi.
Thank you.
So thank you guys for tuning in, listening to Yogi's story. So as you can see, education is something I'm very passionate about. Education with kids, with adults, and our next speaker is also very passionate about education and very passionate about helping people, busy professionals, or all kinds of professionals and parents and family passing down their legacy through helping their kids learn about the financial literacy piece. So, without further ado, I like to do a quick intro of Patrick Amalraj before I bring him up with us. Patrick Amalraj is a technologist, entrepreneur, and startup mentor, two times Girl Dad, and a nonprofit founder, ex Oracle, ex Stephen Minister, and ex president of Chicago Tamil Catholics. He is a vision driven and relationship based leader that is passionate about innovations and technology. So today he's also the co-founder of Sotastic, which is the company that he'll be representing and speaking about today. He has multiple companies, with Sotastic being one of them. And he started the Sotastic with his good friends, and he mostly wanted to help parents work to see and succeed and also grow a legacy and passing the legacy on by educating their kids in finances. So let me bring you on, Patrick. Can you hear me?
I can, Missy. How are you?
Awesome, Patrick. So great to have you here. Last but not least, the speaker of the day. So I understand that you have a lot of interesting perspective that you can share with us through your company, Sotastic. The experience that you shared through you have through the company, but also as a parent and as a startup uh, founder in for quite a few companies as well. So before I get to some of the questions and ask you about your perspectives on a few things, maybe tell us about your professional, personal, cultural background, and also maybe tell us a little bit about Sotastic, the company that I actually had a podcast on as well, and I'm really a big fan of.
All right. Thank you. And before I get started, that's two amazing speakers and what an inspiring story from Yogi, and great perspective on finance planning and wealth planning. Morena as well. I'm glad to be part of this, and thanks for inviting me. So I am an electronics engineer turned information technologist. I worked at Oracle, uh, kind of implementing huge tech systems for large enterprises. I'd always had the passion for new technologies. So 5 years back, I started a company that actually helps startups, specifically startups, build tech products. And like I said, in parallel, I know Yogi had an interesting perspective of you asked the question on when to start giving charity, right? That was my dilemma when because I always had some plans for charity, but then my dilemma was whether to really start that at the later part of the stage or do something in parallel. And it was a challenging decision, but I went ahead and actually started a foundation that actually helps in India that helps people get jobs through career coaching and mentorship. I had some struggles, but then it's basically up and running and it's doing well. And also, um, being a first generation immigrant in America, I mean, I can't thank enough this country has offered me and has been an amazing host. I can't even imagine any place else in the earth that is receiving this much, for people like us. So I always wanted to give back, but I want to understand the culture more. So I actually, become a Stephen minister in my church, which is basically a one-on-one, support group where you'll be assigned with a person who's going through kind of some kind of personal difficulty phase during their life, and then you kind of sit with them, give some emotional support at least once in a week. It was a very interesting experience. I kind of learned to be a listener to other people's problems and going through that and really empathetic about what's happening in the society, what kind of struggles they're going through. That was an interesting experience. But because I was traveling a lot, I couldn't really keep up with that. So I did that for 3 years. And last year, um, me, my wonderful wife Valentina, and our very good friends Roshan and Tiksha, we launched this company called Sotastic, which basically enables a parent to guide their children on the right mindset about money and enabling some smart money habits. Like what can they do now that can actually impact and have a long-term bright future. So that's why the name Sotastic is basically sow today and reap tomorrow. That's kind of our slogan. So that's my little bit background about me. Personal side, yes, I have two amazing wife and two wonderful daughters. I mean, I couldn't ask for more. It's amazing, fun life living with them. And uh, I grew up in India. I did engineering there, and then I came to work in America almost 22 years back. So that's about me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for your story. Yeah, and very interesting connections about the company that you helped launching in India and helping people get jobs. So I think education, jobs, and all those are good things to help people. Um, so one question I've been asking the other speakers as well. What does building a legacy mean to you? I would love to learn more about that.
Absolutely. I think that, the whole concept of legacy itself has multiple dimensions and meaning, and you taking that as it's amazing. I really appreciate that. For me, I want to just take back you to a little story about a little town. It probably was a village earlier, but then imagine a town that surrounded by beautiful hills, tropical rainforest, and a beautiful perennial river with an amazing tasting water, and thriving families with a lot of schools and international schools too, hospitals, and bungalows with gardens, tennis courts, swimming pools, and even a golf club in the nearby hill. When I give this description, you wouldn't I mean, it's not normal to imagine an Indian village with all this, right? But that's the town that I grew up in back in India. So the story goes back almost 140 years back, 1885, when two British entrepreneurs from Manchester, they they were looking for a spot in India for a textile mill. So because there was no power grid at that time, mostly portable power here in the US even, they couldn't really find a place where they can actually run a lot of spinning spindles, and that requires a lot of power. So they kind of turned into hydroelectric power. It was kind of a new innovation at that time, but they brought that innovation back to my native at that time, and they built this beautiful company. I mean, amazing company. That what they did was they basically turned the waterfalls, half of that towards a kind of a turbine that directly connects to the spindles to run the spinning mill. So it's a pure act of innovation and entrepreneurship going towards, of course, they wanted to build prosperity and wealth for themselves as well as for others. Like that was the spirit there. And then the outcome of that was that textile mill was able to give jobs for almost 10,000 people and supported. My grandpa was a laborer there. He was a farmer before, but everybody wanted a industry. It was the start of the industrialization. They wanted kind of a stable job and things like that. So my grandpa, joined as a worker, a textile worker there. My dad, one level upgrade. If you see the next generation, so my grandpa did probably 30, 35 years there. My dad worked in the same textile mill for another 35, 40 years. He kind of, it was one level upgraded to accounting and planning, because my dad was able to complete a basic degree, a commerce degree. My grandpa was illiterate. He did only fourth grade. But my dad was able to go to, at least finish a college degree, get into accounts and planning department in the same company. And then in my generation, we were able to enjoy all the fruits of that company. All this infrastructure that I talked about was was available for us during when I grew up. The reason why I told this story is that this act of maybe it was an ambition from that one person. It's actually a brother from Manchester. That actually has, because they're able to manage, I'm sure they have gone through the struggle. It's a deep jungle actually, really close to the forest. So they basically carved out this, and they probably had a lot of engineering struggle, all those things to accomplish that manifested 3 generations of peace and harmony and thrive family in one. So for me, that is a legacy that they left. They came to India and they did that, and they impacted so much of people. Even now, we are enjoying those benefits. Now, as a first generation American in America, first generation Indian immigrant in America, the kind of legacy that we need to live, I think, is number one. Trying to really take ownership of the responsibility that we have. We almost have dual responsibilities, like a lot of first generation immigrants. We need to actually be good to the host by actually creating, first of all, being a productive citizen, and creating prosperity and wealth, because the wealth usually don't, people when they talk about wealth, it doesn't they always assume it's only with one person. Okay, he's a wealthy person. Wealth usually trickles down the lot. It actually goes to a lot of people. Because that wealthy person will use so much of services. The wealthy person will run a company. There's so many of businesses, and there's a lot of economic activity happening around that wealth. And I think, you know, there is a great responsibility and opportunity for us to create more prosperity and wealth that can actually reach and build a good economic activity and help the hosts that in America. And also, whatever help that we can do from the country that we belong to, we should try to do that. So that's kind of a legacy that I want to build for myself and also impart to my daughters, knowing the opportunity that they have in front of them.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the beautiful story. Legacy can mean so many things for so many people. You can be as narrow as just for myself, or to my family, or to my community, or to all of the communities that we're involved in, has had relationship with, whether it's being US or India or China or any other countries for the world. So it can go as small as big. Just depends on what you want to focus on. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. So thank you for sharing kind of the different scales of the legacy and what it could mean. Um, so one of the things I really was excited to talk to you about is your learnings from Sotastic. You talked about you and your good friends got started in Sotastic. Why Sotastic? You started many other companies, but why Sotastic and why now?
That's an interesting question. I get, we all get to ask that a lot, because we, I myself, coming from an engineering background, my mom was a teacher. You can imagine the amount of stress that was given on education. I think Yogi kind of summed up pretty well. That education is number one to bring people out of poverty. No denial about that. So obviously, to get a good job, when I grew up, it was all about, hey, get a good education, get a good job, so that you can take care of yourselves. I think that's pretty much number one. Yes. So STEM education, we know there's a lot of STEM coaching in the US, and because it's high paying, it usually is high paying job, right? So I was able to kind of get a high paying job back in India when I started my career, but then when I came to America almost 22 years ago, even in American standards, I was able to get a high paying job. So that was very promising. So I felt accomplished, but then I wanted to do something on my own, an entrepreneurial journey in 2016. When I started the tech company, it was a totally different experience. I thought I knew tech, right? So I knew tech. I'm a good problem solver, so we can actually, go help clients. But it was not that easy. It was a lot of different things. I had some employees running payrolls and managing that, the influx of money and invoices, backlogs, and all those. It was a totally different ballgame. And while I was going through that phase, I realized, oh, I could have done that. I should have planned for this like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I could have done that so that it might have taken care of these things. So the whole point for me is that, yes, STEM education, our college education really helps us to, get into a job or career, but then there is a lot of other things that is missed out, which talks about, how to run our life efficiently, because money drives a lot of different things, right? So that was a big revelation for me, and it was a lot of burnout also on my side, because I had to do a lot of work, being initially by being a solopreneur, a lot of work. You probably know that well. It was a tough journey, right? So I was thinking and reflecting on this, and like, what did I do wrong? Like, why did not occur to me in the beginning on. So everybody has a runway when they quit their job and start something, right? So I also had a runway, but then that was inadequate, right? So because pulling the strings and making the whole system work is challenging. So that was for me a cue on at least um, at least starting early might have helped, meaning starting early, thinking about it, planning for it might have helped. Because I started only after 20 years working in a company. So getting good financial education from as early as possible is very important. I kind of came up with that conclusion. I started kind of slowly teaching that to my kids also. But then we came across this amazing couple, both me and my wife, called Roshan and Tiksha. So the thing, what I felt was I have missed out 20 years of my life. Did not pay, uh, did not pay that much attention to financial literacy for myself because I thought, hey, paycheck is coming. Uh, yeah, you buy a house, you buy a car, you take care of the basic stuff, budget it, boom, everything is done. Like life was cool, right? I thought, okay, that'd good. But then when you actually try to do something that you want to do, go out of your comfort zone, it's not that easy. So I always thought I kind of missed out that 20 years of good foundation. Whereas when we met Roshan and Tiksha, they had an amazing planning from the beginning when they started even seeing each other, like when they're like 20, 21 years old. So that was very inspiring for me and my wife. And they had laid out and planned on how to execute, how to navigate around life's events, how to plan for it, how to really properly plan on needs versus wants versus wishes, and that kind of emotional maturity on when you want to buy certain things. Those are all kind of they started early, they planned early, and so here I am sitting feeling that, oh my god, I missed that 20 years of my life, and there I see successful people like Ocean and Tiksha have capitalized that 20 years and done the right thing, because success in life is always compound effect. Right? It's not overnight magic. So that was inspiring. So we shared the story over dinner and said, okay, so we are here, but how are we going to educate our children? What is the right age to start? And then we kind of brainstorm a lot of ideas, and it's not that we need to wait for like 15 years of age to start. There are things that we can start even like as early as 6 years old. But then when they are 9, 10, you can actually really immerse them with real world concepts that can help them, choose and make the daily choice as well. So that's how Sotastic was born. So it's an enabler for parents and teachers as well, that can guide the younger generation to make the right choices about money, to have the right mindsets. Yeah, that was a that was the story behind Sotastic.
Got it. Well, it's never too late. So I'm glad that you guys were able to meet up and start this company to not only help your family, but also help so many more and their kids to pass on the legacy as well. Um, so now that you've had so much learning from both Rosha and Tiksha, and also just from, I know you do podcast and just dive into the research with psychologists and many other advisors as well. So, what do you see as the key challenges for parents in educating their kids on finances?
Very interesting question. Certainly, as the way we deal with money is changing constantly, or continuously, I should say. Um, One of the key challenges to find the right time, like meaning find time, not the right time, but find time in a week to sit with the kids to discuss about money. Because we normally kind of teach money with kids when we go for shopping. That's all fine. That's all kind of wisdom, kind of sharing wisdom. But then, see, we have game time, we have movie time, we have church time. Um, when we have time for everything that's kind of running our life, we also know money runs our life. Well, I always wonder why we are not able to, find that time. So maybe Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m., 2 to 3 p.m. Let's all talk about money. Um, even even the kids, maybe different age. I have a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old. The type of knowledge might differ. That's okay. But they understanding the importance of this starts with that. I think one of the challenges, because we ourselves are running the kind of hustle culture. Everybody are like, oh, just really busy. Like I said, when I started a company, the hustle culture was real for me. Like you have. So for me, oh, is there a smart way to do this, right? So I think every parent needs to allocate some time, at least once in a week, whether indoor or outdoor, just have calm discussions about money habits. I think finding the time is one challenge, and then the second challenge I would say is the living the life and showing it um, in front of their eyes. They should see parents are following these habits, right? Like we can't sit and watch binge watch Netflix series and then expect our kids not to do that, right? It's some of this behavior around money is also the same. So uh, it's a kind of a sacrifice, because we work hard, we and then we expect some kind of relaxation, like, so we want to just loosen up and just sit in front of TV for some time. But then you have to also see the kids are watching you. When you do that, they feel like, okay, this is the way to relax. So is there a different way, right? So all I'm saying is that finding the right time and also showing that how you can do is basically kind of a behavioral change to the parents itself. I think that's some of the challenges that me and my wife used to discuss this. It's not that we are like perfect, right? So we kind of see how we can cut down our TV time, and then make sure have this discussion. And sometimes we kind of schedule some time and talk about money and discuss. But then sometimes some weeks just week passes by, 3 weeks gone. We didn't discuss about any of these things. So I think that's some of the challenges. Yeah.
Understand, yeah. Definitely scheduling time for important conversation is important in today's world. We're just too busy with things. So um, spiritual conversations, different things, and money too. Money is not evil if we use it properly. So yeah,
Very true.
to let people know about the importance of scheduling time for those things. Um, so I know you're a dad of two daughters, and your business partners also have kids. So what are the things you're doing with your family or your business partner's family that's working today in educating your kids? And obviously, this can be working for this particular age and not working for that age. So just some general advice around whatever you already have working would be great as well.
Absolutely. I'll start with the one that you just were talking about. Money can do a lot of good things, right? It's not always evil. I think that perspective, bringing that perspective to the kids at an early age, is it's interesting. It's simple things like showing what are the positive things the money can do, and also touching base on the negative things, right? So that'll give them perspective. Like Yogi pointed up on charity, having that habit of when you save money, you save for some charity also. So having a savings habit, starting, these are all the things that can be done even with a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, right? Having the savings jar for different types of savings and spending also. Um, One interesting thing that I did for I think during my elder daughter is like 12-year-old now. I think when she was 9 or 10, and one birthday, we basically let her budget for her birthday. You know, just simple planning, but it was she felt probably a little overwhelmed, but at the end we saw a lot of emotional maturity coming out of this on what is needed and what is not needed, right? So and things like that, and always tying that with the devices. Like for example, when we grew up, we didn't have many toys basically, right? We probably had maybe few toys, but like every birthday, there's like tons of toys coming in, and do you have the gratitude? Do you appreciate it? how appreciative are you about the tie that you are playing with? Because it's always like this. So something is coming in, they use it for like 2 days, they throw it away, and then go look for the next thing. And then it's like a cycle. Like you have to go and do a goodwill or kind of do something else with the tie. So we're making sure that what we do is basically we collect the ties. We don't immediately give them for playing. We hold it and kind of almost like periodic releases, right? So we like kind of give them, and then really making sure they are appreciative about this. The value of that thing. These are some of the things that we can do, and like I said, the need versus wants. So this is always a interesting discussion. Like, hey, I want a mobile phone because everybody in my class has it. We got our phones when we were what 18, 19 years old. Nowadays it's all about like third graders, right? So it's like, okay, so listing down the reasons why you need the phone, right? So then they come up with some reasons, and then now understanding how much it costs, right? Like it's not that we just give a device and give it to them. Okay, these devices, smartphones cost minimum of $500. So showing them, hey, this device costs this much and you're going to use for this, and what it takes to make the $500. You don't even have to go anywhere else. Showing our own personal examples. Daddy needs to work this much to make the $500. So in order for you to, so these kind of small wisdom has actually, I'm surprised now. My 6 year old, when we go to a shop and she likes something, and then she said, "Daddy, I want that." But then she goes and I said, she asks like how much it costs. Let's say I said $12. Oh, no, that's expensive. Keep it. I don't want that. And sometimes me and my wife looks at each other like, how did they get this, right? So it's basically, I think that emotional maturity is important because um, along with that, combining that with self-regulation, like you make your own choice. Like, what do you do with this? Like, will you buy this device versus this device? So helping them making their own choices is some of the things that we are trying for ourselves. Yes, and
Yeah.
believe it or not, there's a lot of learning in the process for our parents too, us parents too.
Yes, definitely. It's a lot of times learning for parents and learning for kids at the same time, hopefully together. So, what I learned from what you just talked about is first involve your kids in your finance decisions. Try to explain them at a high level how things work, just so help them get involved and help them mm, grow their maturity of understanding in finances, and then give them autonomy to plan something. So when they actually have the decision with a to make with the understanding, that's where they are more thinking from the perspectives that you have shared, some of the basic concepts, needs versus wants. And the third thing is making sure they have a good basic understanding of needs versus wants as well. So thank you very much. I think those are really good tips for any parents and family that they can apply right away to help their kids understand more about finances and be able to pass on the legacy as well. Um, the last question I have, actually, last two questions. I know Sotastic is new and you guys are doing a lot of great things, and there's a lot of families following you guys for advice in the space. What's your long term vision for Stotastic? How it can help other parents and families and grow their legacy?
Sure, absolutely. So the our long-term plan is basically it's touching with the legacy part, right? So as individuals, we're all given opportunities and situations in our life, and how can we build a generation that actually maximizes that opportunity given to them, not just using them rather than really creating opportunity for others, right? So in terms of prosperity and wealth, so for us, for me, like I brought the example of my town back in India, I would tell you, India India is a very complex society. There are a lot of clashes and things like that from different perspectives, but then our place was untouched. There was peace and harmony for so long. The reason is, I think there was a lot of wealth and prosperity. People were, there was life of thriving. So I would say we at Sota City, we aim to create that culture of prosperity, culture of thing that can build wealth at the same time give wealth also. That's the kind of legacy we want to impart to the people taking. And one thing is it's a lot of character building. So it's that's why I think the financial education needs to be augmented with a lot of character building.
Got it. Yeah. I think character building, like you mentioned, is more of a key thing. And the others are more of the mechanics. It's really about similar to what Orina mentioned, having a vision of the characters you really want your kids to have. There's not a one size fit all finance literacy options for kids. It really depends on what's the legacy you want your family to have and then build around that. Um, so appreciate you sharing your vision and how you can contribute to the bigger legacy for the world. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, the last question I have for you is for anyone else out there trying to build a legacy. What are your suggestions for them from your experiences as an immigrant to the U.S. And just as a parent and also as a Sotastic funder?
So yeah, I think everybody are. I think God has given a unique strength to everybody. It's like finding that purpose within the understanding that inner calling. Like Yogi has done amazingly with his life, being a chemical engineer, and Orin too. She is coming from different backgrounds, and how she has navigated now, really helping people manage and build more wealth. All their life journeys have different purpose. I think really finding that purpose is kind of the key. That's going to help, but it's a teamwork. It's not individual, and the team is, I would say, start with the family, right? So keep the family first. I think from an Asian standpoint, that this is my kind of sincere um, wish and thing. Let's say from Asian culture, whether it is Chinese, Japanese, or Indian, we're all very much family oriented people. Like we keep family first. I think this is something that I'm seeing in America. Because of various other reasons, right? Their personal ambitions and a lot of things, they're having struggled to really keep the family first. I think that's something that we can show. It's not that we are leaving our career behind. We are actually keeping that as our focus as well. But then it's a teamwork. So building the legacy starts with finding your inner purpose, finding a collective purpose as a family, and then manifesting it.
Thank you. I feel like you hit the nail in the head. The fireside chat is called building a legacy with purpose, career, and wealth. So I think leading with purpose is definitely key. And sometimes it might take some time to find a purpose. So parents or future parents or just individuals out there. So don't be afraid to take some time, some risks, and finding those purposes for you so you can have a clear direction to steer towards. So, thank you, Patrick, for all your time today. I'd like to just share a few key takeaways that I had from the conversation today in the topic of financial literacy and helping your family passing along a legacy. So, the legacy can be defined in many different ways. It really should be defined based on a purpose that you want to have in your life and your family's life. It can go as broad as helping the world right now or helping your family staying on the right path. Just depends on what that means to you. And secondly, in terms of financial education, financial literacy, it's good to get started as early as possible. And that way, we don't have to waste our younger years or maybe our future generations' younger years not understanding financial literacy because it will affect our decision making when we're older. It's always easier uh, to start early versus trying to add on to something when we're a little more molded already. And the third takeaway I have is look for the time. If it's important enough, you'll find time for it. So put this as one of the things that's important for your family. there's many things in finance, whether you are religious or not. It's always a topic that's mentioned in many of the religious areas as well. Even in schools today, there's a lot more states start mandatory financial education as well. So finding the time for it is going to help you get to that financial journey that you have and the legacy you want to build. So those are the three key takeaways I had from the conversation with you today and the knowledge you share through Sotastic as well. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we end the chat series?
I think you summed it up well, and I really like the focus on legacy. So I appreciate you, bringing people like Yuri, Orin, and myself, and having this, creating this amazing, experience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. While this is the end of the conversation, I do want to remind people who are online or offline, if you want to provide any comment, we're doing a raffle. If not, just submit your name through our social media. Afterwards, we're gonna probably keep the live raffling for until the end of the week, and we can announce later as well because I know quite a few people couldn't make it. So feel free to comment on there, and we can reach out to you to put your name in the raffle as well. And lastly, I want to remind everyone about the donation with Pratham that we have shared in our social media as well. So uh, thank you again, Patrick. I'm going to end um, the live stream here, and we very much appreciate your time and all the speakers, and we'll see you guys next year. Being this is
Thank
the
you.
last week of APM. So thank you so much.